Every writer has come across some form of writer's block, whether it's doing content for clients or stuff for yourself. It can be quite debilitating if you can't figure out a way to get around it. I know there's been a few times where I sat there looking at a blank screen wondering what the hell comes next. Now, although I don't get writer's block that often when writing for clients, it does happen quite a bit when I'm being creative. Well, I'm Michael with WriterSanctuary, and today we'll talk about writer's block and ways to get around it. Now, before we get started, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, and don't forget to hit the subscribe for more content like this. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can always hit me up on social media on Facebook or at Twitter. Quite a few people use the contact forms on WriterSanctuary.com's website. And as always, you can always leave a comment down below. So as a writer, there are two different forms of writer's block. You got the one that stops you from creating content for clients, and then you got the stuff that kind of hinders your creativity. Both of them are kind of the same, but I deal with them a little bit differently. Mostly because when I work for clients, I don't really get writer's block all that often. In fact, when I pick up a job, I'm pretty much set on what I'm doing, and there's a good flow to it. However, there's been a few times where I've had to do a few things to help get over some humps when I was working for clients on Text Broker. So let's start off with the creative side. How do I deal with creative writer's block? Well, the first thing I do is I reread the content that I've already written. Sometimes if I start from the beginning and read through a story, it gets me back into the flow of what I want to happen. And that's to say that it even happens that way. I mean, sometimes a story will take a life of its own. A couple of stories in 7 on Wattpad went way different than I wanted them to, but that's where the story went. So it's worth it to me to go back and reread some of that stuff just to get the ball rolling down the hill again. Another thing I like to do to combat writer's block is to do something different while I'm thinking about the project. For example, I'll get up and do dishes while I'm thinking about the story. That's something that's constructive and keeps me creative. Now it's dishes or mopping the floor or sweeping the porch outside, or there's been a few times where I even cleaned the tub just to get my mind preoccupied. I found that as long as I'm not completely trying to focus on one thing, and if I try to split my attention, it works actually fairly well. The third thing that I do to help conquer writer's block from a creative perspective is to exercise. In fact, there's a lot of studies that show that the increase of blood flow helps you think. And so I'll usually strap on some weights and stand in front of the Xbox for about 30 minutes. Or I'll pick up the dumbbells or the resistance cables, and after a good routine of about 20 to 30 minutes, I'm far more clear-headed. Which brings me up to the fourth thing that I like to do is go for a long walk. This goes along the lines with exercise because it gets the heart going, but I find that walking on a peaceful trail of some kind gets me back into the mindset of being creative. I'll start thinking about the story plots and the character development and things I would like to see happen. If I come up with a really good idea, I'll whip out my phone and put it in the notepad. That's as long as I can remember that I put a note in the notepad to begin with. In fact, I looked at my notepad and there's like notes from like 4 or 5 years ago. I just forget most of the time. But definitely walking is among my favorite activities to get the creative juices flowing again. Now the fifth thing I like to do is I like to take a nice long hot bath. Now this works great in a jacuzzi tub like mine. I mean, it's nothing fancy like a hot tub, but it's one of those tubs where it sucks in the water from the tub and has 6 jets on either side. Just boom. It's relaxing, and I come up with some of my greatest ideas in that tub. And even if you don't have a jacuzzi, a nice long hot bath, A, gets the blood flowing because temperature does that, and B, gives you a chance to relax to clear your mind. And lastly, one of the things I like to do the most is use mind mapping tools like Mindomo. The mind mapping gives you a chance to plan out what you want to happen, whether it's in a story or even character development. How mind mapping works is that you start with a primary idea and then you branch out secondary ideas related to the first. So like say we want to work on a story, but now we need characters. So we'd say we have character 1, whatever his name would be. And what if we wanted to develop some kind of traits for him? So we'd say he's an alcoholic. But he's just not an alcoholic, he's also friendly. But with mind mapping, you go ahead and throw on all kinds of ideas and then delete the ones that you don't like or the ones that don't really fit. Now I know a lot of authors out there that don't really like this idea of what's called pantsing your story. But for the most part, when I do stuff like this, the story doesn't even come close to what my mind mapping winds up being. That's because a lot of times the story takes a life of its own and I just go with the flow. However, a mind mapping tool is great to get you started. Gives you a chance to put out some main plot points or some things that you would like to see happen or other ideas like that that just get your creative juices going. It's just ways to throw out ideas and to see what sticks. And I find it to be a useful tool when I want to flesh out a character or a certain plot, or at least get the ideas going. And that's what a mind mapping tool is all about. Just don't necessarily have to follow it strictly, just gives you ways to get some ideas out there. Okay, well, that's good and all for creative writing, but what about when you're trying to write content for clients? Now here's 4 things that I do to help me combat writer's block for client work. Now the first thing I do is I do a quick search on reference material from competitors. This gives me an idea of what my clients is facing and what they would need in their content. At that point, I usually do the skyscraping technique, and not only do I put in the effort to put in the same type of content, but make it better. So I add far more facts, I link to sources, add more information to what the client would need. But never underestimate reference material and doing some research. That's one of the biggest reasons why I have a second monitor, is so that I can do the research on one screen and then write the content on the first. Just remember not to copy the reference material. You don't want to copy anybody, you want to make it better. So ask yourself, what can I do to make this article stand out more? And once you start surpassing some of the competitors in Google search, your client starts throwing you more money. The second thing I do sometimes if I come across something that I can't quite wrap my mind around is use title generators. I've done a video on title generators in the past, and they work great to an extent, especially the free ones. Because you got to figure, if you're using it for free, so is everybody else. So there's a good chance that you're going to come across content that somebody else already wrote. Title generators work great to giving you ideas. Now you can use the title that they give you, or you can see if there's any way that you can improve upon it. It's a quick way to get a few ideas and to get the ball going. Like, you don't want to strictly rely on title generators because, like I said, there's going to be eventual time where you write the same thing somebody else has. And the client isn't going to really appreciate when you're copying somebody else. But use title generators to give you some ideas. Next thing I like to do is do keyword research and get ideas. At this point, I use stuff like AdWords or lsigraph.com. Now the client will give me a certain keyword that they want me to use, then I'll feed that into those generators and see what other ideas come from them. This gives me ideas of what I can write that's related to the topic that the client might appreciate. I mean, who knows, there might be a time where you come across keywords that they haven't thought of. In fact, there's a lot of times where I do keyword research and I'd come across words that were performing better than what the client wanted. So keyword research is good if you want to score in search engines for that specific topic, but they can also help you come up with ideas for future content or for other ways to write it. And lastly, back to mind mapping. Now I use mind mapping because I'm pretty quick at it. I can come up with a client idea, put down the topic, and come up with all kinds of different things that the client might want. It takes a little bit longer to create content when you do it that way, but a lot of times you come up with far better content than what you were about to create. And it helps you come up with ideas and get the creative juices going again. Now usually when it comes to mind mapping, I only use it for my private clients because if I'm writing on TextBrooker, I'm trying to be as fast as possible. So I'll just do the quick research or the keyword research method. Sometimes it's title generators, it depends really on the client. But you got to remember, as soon as you pick up that order, you're on the clock. The quicker you get that done, the more you're going to get paid per hour. So you want to find a method that works best for you if you want to keep that flow of creativity going. Because otherwise you'll wind up spending most of your day trying to come up with ideas for content, which means you're not going to get paid much. You'll turn that 500-word article that would be a 30-minute project into like 4 or 5 hours. So what are some ways that you combat writer's block? Leave in the comments down below. And who knows, maybe something you do works better than what I do. But if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If you want to learn more about TextBrooker, freelance writing, WordPress, or anything else I cover, hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. That's going to do it for me today. I'll see you next time.